the assumption that a lot of people have is like research takes too long. It's somebody, they're sitting behind a book, it's library, it's cost center, all this stuff. And it's like, no, that's not always the case. And so it really is like, let's make research sexy again.
You're right. It's like branding. It's like, how do we talk about the craft and like doing it justice? Because I think research is a tool, but it's not the final outcome.
Welcome to In Her Words. This podcast is for women navigating through change, career, identity, motherhood, and just figuring out what's next. I'm Roberta Dombrowski, host of In Her Words and founder of Learn Mindfully. Each episode, I sit down with women who are asking big questions, navigating transitions, and trying to make sense of life as it shifts. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need space to be real. Let's get into it. With me today, I have Sahar Chung. Sahar is a product strategy leader with over 12 years of experience across research, service design, and visual design. Her experience spans complex industries including aerospace, cybersecurity, healthcare, telecommunications, logistics, and more. She specializes in establishing research and product strategy programs that combine strategic vision with practical execution, ensuring insights translate into meaningful product improvements. She currently lives and works in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Sahar.
Thank you.
So
Uh,
excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Congratulations on your career transition. You were just promoted to director.
Thank you. I know I'm super excited, and it literally just happened
Yeah.
like a couple days ago, so very exciting.
Yeah. I feel like it's perfect timing because we were planning to talk about career transitions, and then
Yes.
this is another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know you've gone through a few transitions over the last year. First, it was from individual contributor to manager, and now it's to director level. So it's like the amplified impact has really happened. I'm curious, how have these transitions been going? What have your experience been like?
Yeah, as I was like thinking about today's combo, I was like, I actually have managed before, but I had managed interns. And so for some reason in my head, I'm like, that's different. But is it? I feel like it's not. So I was kind
Yeah.
of thinking about that. My first time managing was actually I guess it was like 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had like developed this internship program and like hired the people and had to interview and then I was managing my 3 interns for I think it was almost a year long internship. And that was really cool. That was back at like a social media marketing agency and back when I was a visual designer. So a little also like a different part of
Yeah.
my career. And that was the first time I managed, and then I actually had to manage a summer intern at my last job with a cybersecurity startup. And it was cool because he was a UX designer, and I was kind of helping him more on the research side, but also like managing his performance and like progress and all that fun stuff. So I was like, oh, wait, I had this managed. But it
Yeah.
was like this weird thing where my title wasn't manager, so in my head, it was still very, like, different and separate. At, Multiplayer, where I work now, it's a global experience design agency, and so managers are also, like, player coach, tend to do IC work, and probably lead some client projects. So it was, like, a really cool transition, a little bit more formally
Yeah.
into that world, and, one of the things I did right away was I signed up for Alison Fretz's Design Manager Foundations course that she does because I was like, okay, this time I want to like really be thoughtful and prepared and like a little more methodical about it. And just also understand what it means because I think when you're an IC, you're like, well, I know what a manager is because I have one.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but then, like, the actual job is more than what you see, I feel,
Yes.
as a
Yes.
direct report, and so it was really like, truly, I think I talk about this all the time, and Allison's probably, like, over it, but the calendar rooming lesson that we had was, like, a revelation for me because I was like, "Oh my god, I do need to do that." Like, it was a huge thing because I think when you become a manager and then now as a director, it you really are kinda like the more open spots on your calendar, the more they will fill up.
It gets full. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was so helpful for me, I think just, like, shifting my mindset into, like, okay, people are gonna want that time with me, they're gonna want to, like, have the combos, and that's great, but I also have to have time to do the other parts of my job.
Absolutely, yeah. I love what you said about management is really it's not just what you see 'cause everyone has a manager. And I actually love kind of delineating between management and leadership too as a topic. Managing is really like managing people, processes, tasks, all of that thing. Leading through inspiration, it's entirely different. You think about things like vision setting and context and inspiring, and how can you make sure you're matching people to their strengths and giving stretch opportunities and coaching and all of that. And I often use the metaphor of like an iceberg when I talk about it because there's what's visible. And then as a leader, there's a lot of invisible. There's a lot going underneath the surface.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that, it really is. It's, like, so much more than you could think. So, I actually moved into associate director last year around this time. I think the biggest shift has been, like, that shift in perspective, okay, and, going from IC to manager, of course, there's a mindset shift, but I think going into director, it's like, "Whoa, I'm looking at, like, the full picture, and I'm, like, a little bit higher up," and not in terms of org chart, literally in terms of, like, point of view. I have to look, like, a lot more. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot more of, like, I'm looking at, when you're a manager, I think individual growth and making sure your direct reports are nurtured and supported and all the things that you're
Yeah.
they have, like, you there to, like, help guide them and all that, and then when you move into, like, this director level, it becomes so much of, like, craft and company growth where you're, like or, like, company you're just looking at, like, the full picture, not just, like, the individuals. And you still have to look at the individual, so it's like, just more juggling, I think, and, like, being able to balance, like, what points of view and making sure you're not missing points of views and that.
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting too because like when you go to manager and even more so in director too, we talk about usually with management, with the switch, you often think about, okay, now I have direct reports, but there's also the managing up as a manager and managing the peer relationships with other managers and directors too. And like, how are you? It's not just your team, but how does your team interact with the organization? And
Yeah, so I think, like, that has been kind of a big it's just, like, multiple, like, yeah, mindset shift. One of the biggest things, I think this is a perfect example of, like, a director level conversation decision was we were the research team, and, I would go into all these, like, business development, like, calls with, like, prospective clients, and they'd be like, "They don't wanna hear about research. I don't want research. Way too long." And then they would, like, say what they want, and we're like, "That is
that's
literally"
research.
Yeah. It happened, like, 5 or 6 times early this year in January, and I was like, "I think we have to think about what we're calling the team." Like, and not
Yeah.
not just because of the name, but because that isn't the entirety of the job of a researcher. It's not just, "I do research," it's like, "What do you do with that?" That
Yep.
we are providing those recommendations and moving into ideation, I hope. And so they did shift, they had this great in-person like ELT and research team summit. It was like me and like my senior product strategy lead now and the like C-suite, and we just like sat down for 2 days and we were like what do we need to do? And the big thing with that was like the craft was already new to the agency. We were
Mhm.
like it was the first time we had like a dedicated team of like researchers and stuff. So it was a big combo of like how do we evolve this and make it work, right?
Yeah.
If people don't wanna hear that word, how do we, like, give them what they need with maybe just having them, like, shift perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, we kind of, like, talked about, like, what do we call the team? Do we leave it? Do we change it? And we ended up changing it to product strategy for that reason. And that was, like, one of those, like, I don't know, looking at things from, like, this high up level and trying to, like, figure out all the pieces and make sure, like it makes sense for everyone, not just our clients, but for our
Yeah.
team, our company, everything. So
It's branding. It's like the brand of the team and how do you I always say like make research sexy again. That's what
yeah,
you're trying
I
to
love that. I love that.
because I think that there's so many mental models, and it's really interesting because, like, as leaders in UX and design and research, we often think about mental models of our clients and the customers, but not so much mental models of our teammates, of our partners in the organization. And the assumption that a lot of people have is like research takes too long. It's somebody, they're sitting behind a book, it's library, it's cost center, all this stuff. And it's like, no, that's not always the case, and so it really is like, "Let's make research sexy again."
You're right, it's like branding, it's like how do we talk about the craft and like doing it justice because I think research is a tool,
Yes.
output,
Yes.
but it's not the final outcome. The outcome is like,
Yes.
what do you do with it? What's the decision you make based off of this information?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like it gets lost in it's like semantics, so I'm like, it gets lost in the word.
It does. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
so that was like this whole combo we had and, we shifted to product strategy and we've like talked about like different ways of engaging and all that kind of stuff. And it was so helpful, but it was like one of those big, oh, this is like a big change. It's a big shift. Like you said, the mental model of not only the client or even senior leadership, but like, what about our designers? What about the researchers? Like, how,
Yeah.
kind of feel and make sure that it's not even changing the job because that is the job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
It's the
like
perception of the job,
it's
yeah.
just a perception of it. So it was a big fail. And then having kind of a lot of conversations around, yeah, just like who's using the insights? Like how will you talk to them? Like why does that matter? Like why does it matter to translate things to people? So
Yeah.
they're so
Yeah.
confused,
Yeah.
So it was a lot of it was not only like, okay, decision made, we're done, it was also like the rollout, and then you have to find that out,
It's a change management, yeah. I'm curious, were you expecting did you have any expectations around that part of the role? Because it is a lot of, like, you're dealing with systemic change and winning hearts and getting buy-in, and what was that shift like for you as you stepped into the leadership role?
Yeah, I think one of the helpful things was I had been a service design worked in service design for a really long time, on and off, like, throughout different jobs and parts of my career, and one of my not most recent, but it was, like, 2 jobs in a while, I was a service design program manager for, like, a NASA contractor, and that whole job is, like, change management. Um, I feel like with service design, it's all about like, "Hey, I'm trying to improve process, but I also know people are they're gonna have to learn a whole new thing potentially, and that's not gonna be a tomorrow, like, alright, tonight we shift." And so that's an area that I've always enjoyed in life. I think that it just comes down to relationship building, which is probably one of strengths as, like, just a person, not even, like, in my professional life. It's just something I really enjoy. I love connecting with people in different ways and figuring out ways to connect with people, and so I think that, I was reflecting on this recently, but when you're an IC, relationship building is important because you're, like, cross-functional partners, you're, like, figuring all that out, playing buy-in, trying to make sure you're speaking the same language as, your counterparts and stuff in product and design and engineering even. And then, like, when you move into management, the relationship building, like you said, is like, yes, I'm building relationships and nurturing direct reports, but I also manage up. I have to manage across, talk to other managers, like be very coordinated in that.
Yeah.
As a director, it's so interesting because you have these one-on-one relationships, like, you still have direct reports, you still have, managing up maybe, but yes. And then also there's, like, I'm talking to people managers, I'm talking to the other people in SLT, like our senior leadership team, but then I'm also, like, talking to, like, the whole company, right? In terms
Yep.
of,
What the
like,
team is doing. Yeah.
yeah, and, like, it might be a one-sided combo, or it might not even be words, it might be, like, documentation or just,
Yep.
like, culture shift over time, and so it's like you're talking to, like, everyone, as I think
It
in the
really is.
level,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm talking to everybody in different ways, and so
Yeah.
and, like, juggling is, like, so really important.
Yeah. I always use the metaphor of like an octopus, especially as like a leader in product, but I think it applies to leadership no matter what your role is, because it's you have tentacles that are really going across the organization and touching all these different people and insights. And even like I think part of our role as insights leader, strategy leaders is we identify patterns.
Yes.
And so that's one of also the benefits I feel like as a leader is that you're connecting with people and then you can also connect others to each other too.
Yes, I love that. I love doing that too. I'm like, so yes, that's so true. I love the octopus because it is. You have your hands in everything, but always moving,
Yeah.
so it's not
Yeah.
like in the same place. So things
Yeah.
down, you're kind of like just moving along in all the different like little areas. Yeah.
I'm curious because you did go through a promotion in your current organization. What was that like? Because I imagine there's different team dynamics when you're shifting into a different role in the same like organization.
Yeah, I think the interesting kind of cool thing that multiplayer does is we do every quarter we will review for raises and promotions. So it's not like, okay, you have to wait until next October or whatever. A lot
Yeah.
of companies will do like a yearly kind of review. They do it every quarter, which is really nice. I think because it makes a special sense when we are an agency and, like, things are very fast-paced, so, like, that I feel that keeps in line with, like, we are fast-paced, and so much can happen in, like, not only a quarter, but 6 months, or maybe actually, so much can happen. But I think one of the big things with that has been this most recent promotion to director came when one of our design directors was also moving into a business development director role. So, it was almost like the time was right for a little org change. His whole org was being, to be, like, divvied up, and I think one of the cool things about that was, they had some other promotions around the same time, and so they really, with my craft, especially with product strategy, we really, like, shook things up and, like, readjusted the way the team was organized because I also have been managing 5 direct reports,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was qui and then they were 2 of them were managers managing 2 people each, and, 5 direct reports is it's not, like, an obscene amount, however, with a new craft where I'm also trying to build this craft up,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
pipeline, have work coming in, that was a little bit at odds with each other, and in terms of just time, like, how much time do I have in a day, you know?
Yeah.
And so it has helped because now I'll have 2 direct reports, so both senior lead level, and so they'll be managing the rest of, like, the folks in the crafts, and I think that's, like, perfect because I have that high level overview, but I'm not, like, having as many
Conversations.
important combos, but then, and I think that's the thing, so I don't wanna not have it, I, like, wanna do those if I'm a manager. So now it can be a little bit, like, more balanced in terms of, okay, like, how often do we need to meet? Like, these people also are very capable, so I'm not having to, like, hold hands. So there's a lot of, like, those considerations that, again, I don't think people think of that. I would not have thought about this as an ICM, and now I'm like, "Ooh, there's, like, a lot to think about here."
It's a craft. It's its own craft. Like just like design and research is a craft, managing is a craft, and coaching is a craft, all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's been a big help, and it has been, like, a little bit weird because it's like, okay, my relationship with some of my direct reports who won't be my direct reports anymore is a shift, and I'm like, "I'm still here, but I'm not we're
With
not gonna do it
you.
every week necessarily, but I'm still here."
Yeah.
And so that has been interesting because it is, like, this weird shift within you're changing the whole team dynamic ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, change management, making sure, like, we have these combos regularly up until it happened, just so that it's not like, "Alright, tomorrow it's all happening and you just heard about it today."
Yeah.
Like, we really, like, worked up to it, had a lot of combos, so it's definitely been yeah, just wanting to make sure everyone feels comfortable and ready.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah,
So far, we've been talking about your relationship with your peers, your direct reports. I'm
yeah.
curious, how has your relationship with yourself shifted, if at all, in this
Yeah.
transition?
Definitely has. I think one of the big ways, when I took Allison Fritz's class I mentioned, the Design Manager Foundations course, we did like a radar chart of like different vectors of, management and leadership and kind of like how you felt like you scored in each of those. And I felt pretty good about myself in almost all of them. One of them I was like, okay, this is an area I have to be mindful of. And that was emotional regulation. I tend to feel things I feel a lot of things, and I feel very deeply, and I'm very like, and I feel them, and then I need to feel them to process them. I'm very like, "I gotta feel it. I just gotta feel it, and I'll be over it." My husband has heard me say that many times.
My husband too. My husband too.
I just can't feel it. And it's not even about him, it's just, like, life, and I'm like, "I just need to feel," 'cause, I think that sometimes also with your partner, they're like, "Oh, let me fix it." And I'm like, "No, no, I just need to feel it, and then I'll actually feel better." But it doesn't need to be fixed, I just need to feel my feelings, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
about it. And so I know that about myself, right? And so I was like, "Okay, this is, like, the area where I think I have to put some focus on it," because I think when you move this is an assumption I had that I learned very quickly to think more deeply about, but it was like transparency is, like, the same of, like I tend to, as a person, be like, "I'm very transparent." I just, like, you're gonna know how I feel. Like
Yeah, yeah.
well, also gonna probably hear how I think, like, what I'm thinking about if I just, like, am very external, out loud, like, kind of person. And it became really clear as I moved into management and then into, like, director level roles that there's a balance. It's like transparency is important, but
Yes.
oversharing is not gonna help anyone because you actually just
Yeah.
stress everyone out. And so I think that goes hand in hand with that emotional regulation where it's like, I'm allowed to feel myself like how I need to feel. I can process that with my partner. I can process it with my manager. I can process it with my fellow directors. But I do not need to live like half-baked information and like just rapid like fire emotions because that's just going to be unhelpful. It's going to be disruptive. I know because I've been on the receiving end of that.
Yeah. It's
Like,
like you're chasing things. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes very stressful to hear it because you're like, "I feel unstable.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen next." And then especially because a lot of times, like, those things, like, work themselves out, and then you can't it's like then when you've already told people a certain thing, it just becomes, like, messy, I think, so
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I talk a lot about doing versus being as a leader. Doing is all the tasks, it's executing, it's the things we normally do. But being is the energy you want to bring. And what I'm hearing from you is like, you don't want to just like drop. I call it like the poop and do like you just the swoop and poop. That's not the manager you want to be. It is like you wanna show up, be intentional, have thought things through for your team and not just it's the same thing with, like, friends. You don't want to, like, drop all the surprises with your friends or even your family, and so it's I always find that, like, it's creating the space in your calendar for you to process as a leader and be there and reset your nervous system and all of that stuff, so that you can show up in the meetings the way that you want to.
yeah, I think that's so important. I think it goes back to, like, how I'm, like, every quarter on my calendar and room it up and make sure I have that time because it is so important. Like, I still need to I'm a human. I need to feel down. I need to process it. My nervous system needs to, like, go through what it needs to go through. But then I don't wanna do the soup and poop. I don't wanna, like, dump on people. That's not their responsibility to hold that either,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so, it's, like, very much about I think even as an IC, I was always like, "I want transparency," but then it's
yeah.
not
Too
ener
much, too
yeah.
much.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not there's a very it's a fine line between, like, yeah, like, being transparent and open, but then also, like, dumping, oversharing, all that. That was, like, a really big for me as, like, a learning like a growth area, but also, like, figuring out how do I process separately. I think because I tend to be also someone who wants to process, but and so I'm, like, finding the outlets where it makes sense and
Yeah,
avoiding the outlets where it would actually be, like harmful, I think, and, like, not
yeah.
helpful. you know?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Did you find that imposter syndrome was ever part of your transition into
You
leadership?
know, I love that question because I it's kind of weird, like, I definitely have those moments. I think everyone has
Yeah.
always, and it's so normal and human. But
Mhm.
I also don't let myself wallow in that because I think, anytime I've experienced it, I've been like, "Okay, I'm feeling like maybe a little less than or not up to the task," or whatever the feeling is. And I'm like, "Girl, you've done so many things." You
Yes,
nailed
yeah.
it. But I really do I'm like, "No, like, you have done so much, you've accomplished so many things, you've gone through a lot of difficult situations in your life, not just work, like, just life." And I'm like, "You're good, you have it, this is nothing, you're fine," you know?
Yes, yeah.
And I think also just, like, reminding myself that, but also that everyone starts from somewhere and, like, everyone's gonna have a new experience at some point in their job, in their life, and, like, that's just part of, like, being human is to, like, figure it out. I think, I'm tend to be really introspective and reflective and like, think through things and be like, where am I? Where have I been? And so I think it is one of those things to just be like, have yourself grace to know that you're not the first person going through this ever. Like there are other turn to other people. I think also one of our multiplayer, like the Humphrey values is I don't want to butcher it. It's like ask for help when you need it,
I
basically.
love that.
And
Yeah,
the reason that's one of our values is, like, we know that asking for help is actually a growth pathway,
it is.
and I love to ask for help. And I think that it's, like, the thing that has probably served me the most because, when I started in my associate director role, I was like, "Well, I'm overwhelmed. This is a big change. I'm gonna be managing, like, so many leading a team of 10, managing 5 of those people. It's a lot." And my manager, who is the chief design officer, was like, "Let's have 2 twice a week one-on-ones for, like, a little bit until you feel good," and it was just, like, having the support like, telling him, like, "Hey, I feel overwhelmed," and he's saying, "Okay, let's figure out how to
Yeah.
put it together," and then also just, like, leaning on just our whole executive leadership team, like, business development for me was, like, a whole new area that I've mostly worked in-house, I'm not used to that. I have worked freelance, and I hated that part of it. It was
Me too. You're not alone. I
right?
hear that from a lot.
I'm like, "I hate doing this," and so learning from them and just, like, shadowing them and being like, "Hey, this is an area I want to learn more about," and them just being, like, very open with helping with that. Like I said, we have a business development director now, but when he was even still the design director, it was a lot of, like, "Hey, can I, like, chat with you about this pitch that" it was just a lot of
Yeah.
on people. I think the other thing about the asking for help that is so important is I I had hired last year, left my first hire as an associate director. A lot of other people, in conjunction with the head of research at the time, but this was like my first hire, and he came from a sales background, moved into human factors and research, and so he pivoted. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is like gonna be so helpful in so many ways. And he is, our senior product strategy lead right now. And I was leaning on him. I'm like, hey, you know more about this than me. I'm gonna learn from you. And so I think there's also this aspect of like take your ego out of it. Like it's okay to learn from anybody
Yes.
around you. It doesn't have to
Yes.
be about you or your peer. Like I learn from everyone all the time.
Yeah.
So
I
I think
love
being
that.
open to that, because I think that sometimes people feel like learning has to go top down, and I feel like learning is like it's just a circle.
I agree. Yeah. And what we're talking about is power structures and power dynamics when you become a leader. And the thing with being a leader is that, yes, you're responsible for things like comp and performance reviews and giving feedback and all of those things. And it changes the dynamic. But as much as you can level the playing field in many ways, and at our basics, we are human. We are all human. And so we connect and we have that in common. And I love what you talked about of learning from other people. I envision like in a dream world where leadership and relationships is very fluid. That's how it is with coaching clients. I always say like you're an expert in your experience. I'll bring my coaching expertise. We come together. It's very fluid in that way. And I envision workplaces having that fluidity as well when it comes to sharing information, communicating. There's not the speaking down, the toxicity that is just there in many places these days, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I think, like, being vulnerable, something a lot of people are not comfortable doing, and maybe it doesn't feel
Yeah.
good to do that everywhere either. Um,
No, it doesn't.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I feel lucky that I have been able to be, like, open about that and where I am now and, like, just yeah, like, look outwards any
There's
direction.
strength in that. Like there really is strength in being able to say, I don't know. But I'd love to learn.
Yes, I wanna know. I don't know yet.
Yes.
I don't know yet.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, and so I think that's been really helpful for me is just, like, that kind of mindset of just, like, "Let me figure it out, but let me not figure it out by myself. This is not about
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
to be alone in it."
Yeah, it does get very lonely. One thing that I often talk about is like leadership doesn't have to be lonely because usually when you go the farther you go up, the less that you're able to share kind of with people inside of the organization. And that's why having connections outside of the org can be really helpful too as a leader to make you because usually there's other people, you're not alone. There's other people going through the exact same things as you as
Yeah,
well.
so true. I think I have my old manager who was the director of US at our old job. I talk to her all the time. Actually,
I
no,
love it.
Karen Lamb, shout out to her. But like, she's amazing. I chat with her all the time. I have a really good friend who is also an engineering manager, not even the same class, but it's task. And it's just always helpful to like bounce things off of each other. And so I feel like that's so true. It's like having multiple vectors of support, I think is important, you know?
Yeah, I talk about designing your what you're doing is designing your executive team or your leadership team for yourself. And that can include, I would say, like partners are on it, family members, therapists, coach, managers, like anyone who's a peer. It's how can you create your system for success for
Yeah.
yourself, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's really important too. It's just it's a
Yeah.
better version of, like, having a community and, like
Yep.
yeah, I think community is, like, so important, of course, but I think especially now, just with, like, the chaos of the planet, I felt in every way, just having, like, ways of connection, I think that's just, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I agree. Is your company fully remote or are you meeting in person as well?
We are fully remote, which is, like, truly hard to find now, but I have found, like we have an office in Brooklyn, no one's even required to go to, even the people that live in New York.
Yeah.
It's just there if people want to go in, and people do. It was great, I went there twice this year. The first was for the little summit to talk about the research team, and then now product strategy team. And then I went most recently to have like a chat about biz dev and like just like really sit down and like spend 2 days with our development director. And it's nice because and there's something about it's just I'm very big about remote work. I think that it's such an equalizer.
It is.
Chronic illness personally. I'm like,
Same.
it's huge for me to be able
Yeah.
to, like, work and be able to show up, and, like, that is the whole thing I don't have to worry about. It was like,
Yeah.
person, what am I gonna eat? What if I don't feel hungry? You know, like, all
Yeah.
that.
Same.
But then, like, having these, like, couple moments, like, being able to connect in person has been really nice. So it's just, like,
Yeah.
nice that it's not required, but it's there if you want it.
That's the perfect,
I
like
know. I'm like, it's quite literally how I love it. Like, it's a perfect setup, I think.
that's amazing. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how has your outside time, like outside of work time shifted now that you're in this leadership position? Like, I imagine your day's pretty full. How do you recuperate? How do you spend your like free time?
Yeah, that's a huge one because I tend to be in back-to-back meetings, not all day, 'cause I do try to, like, block out some, like, time for myself, but lots of meetings, and I think the big thing with those meetings, as you also probably know and remember, is just, like, the context switching is, like, every meeting is about something else.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, it's never about the same thing. So I'm going from like a meeting about this, and I'm talking about something completely different, and I'm like talking to a client. I'm like, oh my gosh. So like the whiplash is real. There are days where I lay off work and I just need to sit here. and like I'm just so safe for a bit. In the quiet of my home. And I always find it funny because I am quite extroverted. However,
Yeah.
that's still a lot. So I need some alone time after that, and so I will like take some time and like decompress. Right now in the summer, I swim.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
neighborhood pool is open, and I actually have I've tried to hold in the middle of the day actually when no one's
That's
there,
smart.
and so I
Yeah.
put that in my calendar, but like, hey, let me swimming right now, and just like kind of work my day around that so that I
Yeah.
have that dedicated time. I think that's like very helpful with just like many. I mean, it's just like letting my body move there. I don't have to go
It's an embodiment practice, swimming. Like you're fully in the moment and you can just, you're not focusing, you clear your head. Yeah.
now, and it's like I can't be on my phone. I'm in the
Yeah.
water. Like, so it's very helpful. I think also just like vitamin D, like in the sun, and just be outside. I think especially when you sit all day and then you're like, oh my legs are hurt, and just playing out in the water and just like letting your body move is like really helpful. So I love doing that. Take my dog for a little walk. She's 4 pounds, so the walk is short.
Put her in a stroller, like a doggy stroller.
My mom has a stroller for her and I refuse. I'm like, no. But I'll walk her and like, she if it's not raining, she will not go outside if it rains.
Yeah. Oh,
Um
diva dog.
she's a diva. She is like the queen of this house. All 4 pounds of her. But yeah, I think it's just about like shifting. Sometimes it's hard when you work at home, I think, to shift out of work mindset because you're in the same
Yep.
place. And so it sometimes it's about like, let me just stand up and like move out of this room. And that helps because I think it can get really easy when you work from home to just sit here and keep working when the day is over. So I have to be very thoughtful of like, nope, I need to hold, like, clear my mind, let my body move down, whatever it is. My husband and I will watch, like, we'll just watch TV together, like, just and chat about our day. I think that's
Yeah.
like decompressing moment of also like reflection and like catching each other up. Lately, I'm so glad you can't see it, but our house is slightly of a disaster zone. We're like rearranging the whole basement and
Oh,
like
wow.
and so there's just, like, stuff everywhere, but that has been actually kind of I don't know, I like that kind of stuff. I'm like, "Ooh,
It's
wait."
tactile, especially when you're behind your desk all day.
Yeah, especially, like, when so much of the way we connect in remote work is very digital. It's like you're on a screen with someone, so it's very like, "Ooh, let's all build this idea together." And, like, it's funny because, people are like, "Oh, it doesn't sound relaxing," but I don't know, there's a creativity in where do we put this, and, like, how do we rearrange this room to, like, flow better, and so that kind of stuff I like, find really fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. And a lot of what you said is very tactile embodiment exercises and practices. I always find that like the resets that your nervous system needs are in the transition moments. So it's the 3 minutes before a call. I have sprays over here. I have like sage sprays and aromatherapy stuff to just like ground and reset. And personally, for me, one of the practices I love is gardening. Like, I get out, get your hands in the soil, just like create something and get out there is super important.
I love that. I had we bought our first, like, we're in a townhouse for the first time, and, we have our own garden, and so
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
yeah, like, every fall, I'm, like, planting tulip bulbs and, like, just
Yeah.
something I never had to do, and I also it is, like you said, like, very grounding, and, like,
Yeah.
there's something soothing about, like, putting your hands in the dirt.
Yes, absolutely. So we've talked about your transition to leadership. I'm curious if there was one nugget that you were hoping to leave listeners with. What would you say to someone going through a career transition or a leadership transition?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to what we had talked about a little bit ago, but like all the help you can get and like seek it out and don't wait for it to come to you and like I think take it all when it is offered to you. I think it's just one of those things where I feel like there isn't always like some companies I know are set up where they'll have like training and like you can go learn how to the manager, but not everyone has that, and I think that if it isn't something that your company has, and even if it is, multiple perspectives, go out and talk to different people who are managed. Like, it's so helpful. Like, my mom, she works for a NASA contractor, and she manages, like, this is an insane number, like 60 people.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, "That's different." But let me talk to you and be like, "How do you do that?"
Yeah.
Like, the contracts, the way they're set up is, like, you're managing cross-functional people, and then they have their own little pods and all that.
Yeah.
So but it is, like, a really interesting, different perspective, and so there's some things that are just exactly the same about it, and then there's some things that are different, and they're all very helpful to know about. Each and
Yeah.
everything's gonna be helpful. So I think, yeah, going out there and just, like, ha the research of me, I'm like, "Let's gather information." And emphasize it, but really, yeah, like, he'll learn from different people because everyone also has different views on leadership. Husband was in the Navy, he's not anymore. He left his service, but he learned so much from, Naval Academy, and, like, all they learned they spend so much time learning about just leadership as, like, the concept of and so yeah, it's like having these, like, very diverse perspectives is, like, just very helpful. Yeah, and you don't have to align to every single one, but it is a helpful way to learn how to navigate and find your own voice as a leader, and then also, like, you just never know what will come up where something will be really handy as well, so yeah, I think it's,
It's
like
a toolbox that you're adding
yeah.
to. Amazing. How can listeners stay connected with you?
I am on LinkedIn. So, yeah, you can find me, Sahar Chung. I'm the only one in the world that I know of. You'll find me easily. I also have a blog on my personal website, so saharchung.com. Will write films about research and leadership and the hunting and all kinds of stuff on there, so you'll be able to find me there as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sahar.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
So fun. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode landed with you, feel free to pass it along to someone who might need it too. You can leave a review, subscribe, or just keep tuning in. We're figuring it out together. And remember, your story, your voice, your becoming, it all matters.